Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I'm an intuitive artist and a student of natural law, and I'm going through right now the formal consensus document to try to help groups learn how to practice horizontal communication so that we stay together, so that members don't feel tyrannized by one guru or leader and also don't feel intimidated by conflict. Every group has conflict, and formal consensus utilizes conflict as a creative force. Under natural law, there is no authority, so it is a violation of natural law for there to be one leader telling other people what to do, and that's what we all know how to do. We all kind of, when I say we all, I'm just making a blanket statement from my experience. And I just had this experience again the other day because a group was formed to create a project. And then right after the group made some decisions as a larger group, a small group of 4 or 5 people, of which I was included in, thought they were the self-appointed government of the larger group. And then there was one particular person who thought he was the president of the small group. And it was all put forth on a text message, a group text that then was transferred to a Signal chat, and it became a clusterfuck, to say the least, especially because I put forth that I wasn't going to make any decisions horizontally, hierarchically, and said that if we were going to make some decisions, we'd have to meet face to face. That was the end of the discussion by the other people. I don't know, maybe they met somewhere else. Eventually what happened with that was that the person who had stepped up in the larger group and had said that they were going to coordinate the next meeting asked me what she should do. And I said, what did the larger group ask you to do? Do that. And she was disempowered and felt like she needed to get permission from the president guy, El Presidente, let's call him. And I'm sure there's animosity now. I'm sure he's mad at me for not bowing down to him. But this illuminated for me just how much social media is a divisive force in creating unity, and how much we need to be face to face and probably meeting weekly, even though there's no imminent danger that we can see anymore since we're not masked and locked down. But the danger is right there at the door. So going back to the formal consensus document, and I'm looking at the next 2 principles in chapter 3 on page 22. The first one is unity of purpose. It says unity of purpose is a basic understanding about the goals and purpose of the group. So in our case, the goals and purpose of the group are probably shit hits the fan prep and community, or a parallel economy to create a way to not be tracked if cash goes away suddenly and we're dealing only with digital currency from the government. And then obviously food sovereignty, water, transportation, and possibly medical care and supplies, other things like that, things that we're depending on the system for right now that we need to be able to depend on each other for. Of course, there will be varying opinions on the best way to accomplish these goals. However, there must be a unifying base, a common starting point, which is recognized and accepted by all. I think the thing that right now we have is we all want freedom for ourselves. And, you know, Mark Passio has talked about this, about how it's the My Freedom movement. I want my freedom, but I don't care if you have your freedom. That was displayed by this latest thing that happened. And I just don't think that person really understands. I think that most of us, a lot of us, are still under mind control, and we don't realize that we're alpha mailing, or when I say alpha mailing, what I mean is alpha mailing, putting our big paw on other people. When we think we're fighting for freedom, we're actually creating more slavery. I just think we're just under mind control about that, and we have to learn that you can't tell other people what to do in a voluntarist group. So we want freedom, but we have no idea even what that is. We don't even really know what freedom is. We want to be able to do what we want to do when we want to do it, which I'm not sure if that's ever going to be something we're going to get, because it's not that there are no rules, there are no rulers. Again, it goes back to the inner monarchy. I govern myself. But that means that I have to practice principles. I have to attempt to align myself with principles. I can't just go do whatever I want, whenever I want. But this is a whole huge other thing for people that are just going to have to think about for themselves and figure that out. The next principle that we're going to discuss, that I'm going to discuss tonight, is nonviolence, which, as I've said in the past, I'm not a big fan of that word nonviolence because it's a negative word. But I think there's a reason for it, and I think it's because the word peace has been co-opted. Peace, man, peace. That doesn't even mean peace. That means victory. V is for victory, which means, you know, we won, which is hardly peace. So that word has been co-opted. And I think also peace means harmony, which it doesn't mean that. You can have peace and have people who agree to disagree, but who still respect each other's, you know, the term live and let live is peace. It's basically tolerance, which means supporting other people in doing things in the opposite of how I would do them, and but there's got to be space in tolerance. Like, they can't be up my butt, like they can't be hovering over me. And that's what's kind of happening now, is that the socialists, the people who want mama and daddy government to take care of them, are right on top of the people who want to be free. So these words, I think that's why they're choosing to use the word nonviolence, because of what it's going to say here. Okay, nonviolent decision makers use their power to achieve goals while respecting differences and cooperating with others. In this environment, it is considered violent to use power to dominate or control the group process. So that is why they're using that word. They wanted to use that word violence so that we could understand that violence is actually violating other people's space. So, which takes us back to, again, to the violations of natural law, which I'm going to see if I can remember them all right now. To violate natural law the main way is theft. So it's theft of property. I have an inalienable right to my own property. Theft of space, my own privacy. I have an inalienable right to privacy, my own lair. This flies in the face of homelessness. I have an inalienable right to my own lair, my own place to lay my head. That's private. Violation of or theft of my own decision making. So that would be coercion. So that would mean stealing theft by omission, by not telling me the whole story, giving me options that don't have all of the information. Trespass. So that would be trespassing on my property without my permission, or invading my, my space, my physical space, telling me I have to get jabbed or I have to wear a mask to enter a public accommodation like a grocery store. That's a violation of my inalienable rights under natural law. Sexual space, that would be rape, theft of sexual space, theft of my life, murder. So those are all violation. And they've co-opted the word force. So force is permissible under natural law because I have to be able to stand up for myself against violence. But they've co-opted those words. So here we are. I'm going to reread this again after we've gone over this. In this environment, it is considered violent to use power to dominate or control the group process. So what would that look like? Manipulation. Manipulation is violent. Having a side conversation that puts another person down and makes them feel less than and tries to steal their personal space or their personal confidence. Interrupting is an overt act of violence in the group process. Use power to dominate or control a group process. Another way would be using a hierarchy, like this El Presidente used violence to dominate and control the group process by just assigning tasks to people. He just assumed power because he had originally started the other group. And so then he tried to use that power that that was perceived, his perceived power, to assume the role of El Presidente in the next group to dominate and control the group process. So also I would say you could use like intelligence and the ability to sound good, to be able to talk, to be able to throw around big words and concepts and get people to think that you know more than they do. So they'll listen to you and make you the leader because they don't understand what you're saying, but it sounds good. Another way is to just, of using violence would be to just step into the role of leader and dominate through intimidation. So I'm sure there's some I'm missing right now, but that's the best I can do off the top of my head right now. The next sentence says, it is understood that the power of revealing your truth is the maximum force allowed to persuade others to your point of view. Well, he's using force in the correct way. It is understood that the power of revealing your truth is the maximum force allowed to persuade others to your point of view. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So that gives two sets of responsibilities, okay? One set of responsibilities is to me presenting my argument or my statement, my truth, in an articulate manner. Maybe not talking every 5 seconds, maybe just presenting my truth to persuade others to see my point of view. Revealing my truth, but I'm not going to argue about it. Like, I'm not going to be petty. The word argument has also been defaced because it used to be part of logical debate, an argument, and now it's considered to be a conflict, an argument. But actually, an argument was, at that time, it was a statement of truth that was backed up by facts or logic. The trivium. Let's look at the trivium for a moment, where you gather the trivium, you gather the data together, you process the data, and then you have the output. And so then the argument would be part of the processing of the data. We'll get into the trivium another time. But that would probably be used in persuading the group to see your point of view, but it wouldn't be like badgering or talking every 5 minutes. There would be like a set, there's this facilitator in formal consensus. There's a neutral facilitator to help mediate this sort of situation. But it's not like you're going to beat people over the head with what you want to have happen. That's not the purpose of consensus. The purpose of consensus is everybody voices their concerns and their ideas, and then you let God, the spirit, intuition, the spirit between each person come together for the highest good. And that's where the brilliant ideas come from, for the highest good. It's not about who's going to win. We're not competing. It's nonviolent. It's nonviolent. So I see where what they're talking about. They want to use that word violent because we have become violent in everything we do now, because we're so competitive now. And this is a result, again, of the society that we live in, the fact that we have a currency that is dishonest, and it creates greed and feelings of scarcity. So because of that, we have become violent in our communication with others, even with our loved ones. I would just hazard a guess. I just know for myself, like the other day, I did it to my partner. I was in a group of people, and I realized, looking back on it, I was hurt and upset, and I didn't realize what I was doing. And I had to apologize later for what I did. But that was a form of violence, because I wasn't using force to defend myself. I was using violence upon him. It's just a natural thing that we do now. Gossip is violent, talking about people behind their back. That's another thing that they're probably talking about here. We don't do that. We're not going to do that. I think I'm going to move on to the next one, self-empowerment. It is easy for people to unquestioningly rely on authorities and experts to do their thinking and decision-making for them. If members of a group delegate their authority intentionally or not, they fail to accept responsibility for the group's decisions. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, we don't want the responsibility, because if you take responsibility, then if you're wrong, then you feel like you've done something bad or you're bad. It's better to be able to blame someone else. That's one of the whole reasons of having a tyrannical leader, is then you can blame them. Consensus promotes and depends upon self-empowerment, which has to do with the inner monarchy. Anyone can express concerns. Everyone seeks creative solutions and is responsible for every decision. Everyone seeks creative solutions and everyone is responsible for every decision. That's like a worker cooperative. In a worker cooperative, all the workers are owners, so everyone owns part of the company. And it sounds socialist, but it's actually the most extreme form of freedom and of a group working together, and they use formal consensus in worker cooperatives to make decisions. When all are encouraged to participate, the democratic nature of the process increases. Well, I'm not a big fan of the word democracy. I think we were hoodwinked into using that word. But what I would say is, when all are encouraged to participate, the individual nature of the process increases. And the word individual actually is a paradox, because it means undivided. So in other words, we're undivided from each other and we're undivided from God. Of the God, when I talk about God, I'm talking about the God of nature, not a non-religious God. So when all are encouraged to participate, the individual nature, the undivided nature of the process increases. So in other words, our deep inner true selves come out when all are encouraged to participate. And then there becomes an answer that is for the good of all, the highest good of all. So I am going to stop there for tonight.